The Terrifying Lies Podcast, with music and stories by Craig Nybo. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Terrifying Lies Podcast. I'm your host, Craig Nybo. Welcome back to the show. I hope you are enjoying it. This show can only survive on its listenership. That means good reviews and word of mouth. If you like the show, I'd like to remind you to spread the word. Share it on your social media. Let people know about your favorite episode. Give it positive feedback. Even better, get behind it at patreon.com/terrifyinglies. For less than the price of a hamburger every month, you can help keep this show alive. So, skip the hamburger, save the calories, and back the show. Now, on to what you have come for. Fair warning, this episode is part 6 of an ongoing saga. If you jump in today, you might find yourself bewildered. For those of you brave enough to proceed, here's the story so far. The Ice Beetles, an alien race on the brink of extinction at the hand of their mortal enemies, the Vols, have sent a small exploratory group into space aboard a salvaged Earth vessel in search of allies. Now in space, they've attracted the attention of a behemoth pirate cruiser. The space pirates have boarded the Ice Beetle ship and plan to loot it for everything they can take. Can the Ice Beetles defeat the pirates and get on with their mission in space? Well, you'll have to listen to find out. With no more delay, I give you Poison Nickels Across the Universe, part 6 of 10. The bridge was empty when Chi and the two pirates entered. Through the observation window, Chi could see the blood drive, Garr's ship. A long, truncating atmospheric corridor linked the pirate vessel to the USS Arlington. The two ships floated in symmetry like mates in the glassy emptiness of space. The pirate ship dwarfed the Earth vessel. Chi had to be careful in dealing with Garr. This was a matter of diplomacy, not force. Chi crossed to the workstation Winkle had adapted for him. He'd replaced the keypad and controls with indicators and buttons marked in the language of the Ice Beetles.
What do you want to see?
Chi said as he sat down at the control center.
Give me a map of the ship's entire floor plan, along with readouts of each room's contents. I want to see everything. Hold even one piece of information back, and I will have Inian break your shell in two and dig out your beating hearts with her hands. And don't think for an instant that she can't do it.
Chi went to work, typing on the keyboard. After a few clicks, the observation window filmed over into a digital readout of the ship's floor plan. The map kept the ship organized on a grid, each room named according to its coordinates. The ship's software color-coded the rooms to help give an at-a-glance impression of the ship's layout. Garr stepped toward the screen and put his hands on his hips. He scanned across the ship's blueprints.
Zoom in on Deck B, Block 8,
Garr said. Chi tapped a few keys and rolled a trackball. The map tilted and zoomed until Floor B filled the entire screen. Block 8 glowed a subtle yellow. Pop-up windows appeared, disclosing each room's purpose. Garr scanned the map, noting which rooms he planned to loot. One room caught his eye, an armory. This ship didn't belong to the Ice Beetles. Why would traveling musicians need an armory? Besides, Garr recognized the language printed on the screen. The Beetles had stolen or purchased the ship from Earthlings. Garr hated Earthlings. Their stench still lingered in the air. He couldn't wait to strip the vessel, disable its engines, and leave it adrift, Ice Beetles and all.
Deck C,
Garr said. She clacked away on the keyboard and worked the trackball until Deck C appeared. Each room tagged and color-coded. One room glowed bright red, blinking like a warning sign. Chi knew that room well. He'd ordered Stig to weld the port shut.
Zoom in on Block 2, Room C4,
Garr said, pointing to the blinking room on the map.
You don't want to go into room C4, trust me.
Chi said. Garr wheeled around, keeping his fists on his hips, and angled an intense glare straight at Chi.
Let me remind you of exactly where you and your poison nickels stand. This ship is no longer yours. It belongs to me. I am this ship's god. I alone choose to allow it to live or to kill it right here in the vacuum of space. Now zoom in on C4 before I decide you are no longer useful.
Chi wanted to break out from behind the control panel and plant his spicules into the revolting flesh of Garr's face. He could do it. He knew it. If not for the threat of being blasted to oblivion by the behemoth ship tethered to the USS Arlington, Chi swallowed his rage and clacked away on the keyboard. He used the trackball to zoom in on room C4. Garr looked up at the screen. Just as he began to read the superimposed information about room C4, the map blinked out. The screen turned to transparent mode, revealing space. Garr raised a hand toward the screen.
What is this?
He shouted.
Trouble with the network. It's been happening since we left Tronon 4.
Chi said. Garr turned on Chi and drew a weapon from his side, a device similar to the high-velocity projectile launchers Nasher had found in the Earthship's armory. Chi stood up from behind the command center, his face fixed, his eyes black as river stones, trained directly onto Garr's sunken orbs. He raised his rakes into fighting form. Garr aimed his weapon at Chi's face.
You will stand down this instant, or I will blow you out of your shell.
Chi clicked his spicules and backed off.
How convenient that the network guys, just as I discover a room that the ship's captain tells me I do not want to access.
I am not lying,
Chi said.
Inead, access the ship's computer, please.
The oversized woman moved to the control center. She hipped Chi to the side using more force than Chi would have expected. He staggered away. Inead clacked on the keyboard. She tried code after code. Finally, she looked up at Garr and shrugged her shoulders. Garr spoke through a wash of suppressed anger.
It looks as if you're telling the truth about the network going down. I expect you to summon your technical authority on board to repair it immediately. In the meantime, you will lead us to Deck C, Room C4, where I will personally peruse just what it is you don't want me to see.
Chi swore in his native tongue and drew the compod from his exoskeletal pocket. He put it to his mouth.
Gorn, are you on comm?
Gorn's voice came through the compod.
I'm in my quarters, writing songs.
I need you to come to the bridge immediately. The network has gone down again. I've been ordered by Captain Garr of the Blood Drive to summon our technical officer for repairs.
Chi released the compod button, hoping that Gorn would get the gist of his ploy. If she showed any confusion, or even worse, rebuffed his request due to her lack of technical expertise, this would all end quickly and badly for the Poison Nickels.
I'm on my way to the bridge to diagnose the network problems,
Gorn said. Relief flowed into Chi.
Very good, little beetle,
Garr said, keeping his weapon aimed at Chi.
Now take us to room C4.
Chi growled under his breath and crossed to the bridge exit. Garr and Inead followed him into the corridor toward the storage facility that contained a thriving vole nest. Winkle sat on a stool he had rescued from one of the nearby storage rooms. He stared at the alien keypad, scratching his head with his spicules as he summoned the spirit of reason from Taich, the god of ice. Nasher moved in behind Winkle, loaded down with earth weapons he had recovered from a decrepit armory.
It is a combination locking mechanism,
Winkle said.
There seem to be 10 digits. I don't have the time or equipment here to translate them, but I think they adhere to a rudimentary code with 7 bits.
Winkle pointed at the 7 individual readout screens above the keypad.
Can you crack it?
Nasher said.
10 digits create over 1 billion possible combinations in 7 registers.
Then there is no hope.
Luckily, our captors are particular when it comes to hygiene. Only 7 of the possible 10-digit buttons show signs of use. Note the oil and grime on the buttons.
7 of the buttons appeared besmirched with dirt. Some of the ink had even worn off.
This indicates to me that we are probably dealing with a permutation. 7 choices, 7 registers. With only 7 buttons, that limits the possible code combination down to...
Nasher shrugged. Winkle was losing him. Winkle reached into an inner pocket of his shell and pulled out a length of charcoal he kept on hand. He wrote a formula on the metal floor of the bridge.
Where N equals the number of soiled keys, 7, and R equals the number of registers, also 7, we get...
Winkle worked the calculation in his head and wrote the number in chalk on the floor.
5,040 different possible permutations.
Winkle said.
Not good enough.
Nasher said.
My friend.
Winkle looked up from his work.
I am working on it. Your constant cast of hopelessness is not helping the situation.
Nasher raised a rake in an apologetic gesture and backed away to let the Ice Beetle scientist have his space. Winkle raised one rake to the keypad and lined up 7 spicules over the 7 soiled buttons.
I estimate that I can punch in 275 codes per minute. That means I can enter the total of 5,040 possible permutations in 18 minutes and 15 seconds.
So start punching,
Nasher said.
However,
Winkle said, raising a spicule,
should the system lock down after a designated quantity of attempts, or should successful entry depend on a time-based lockout, that would further impede my ability to crack the code.
Nasher raised 2 of his rakes in frustration.
Perhaps I should consider common mathematical numerical sequences that are also permutations.
Winkle said.
The Fibonacci sequence, for instance.
I'm gonna set up a bushwhack further up the corridor.
Nasher said, no longer able to tolerate Winkle's constant narrative.
If they come back, I want to be ready.
Capital idea,
Winkle said. Nasher moved up the hallway, laden with earth weapons, leaving Winkle standing over the keypad, his mind moving from calculation to calculation. Room C4 sat at the end of a long hallway, deep in Deck C. Chi and the pirates stopped at the entrance, a large double-sliding slab of metal. Garr smiled as he looked at the size of the entryway. The oversized door had been structured so that a lifter could access the room, possibly to transport large loads of freight in and out of storage. He lowered his weapon and moved to the door. He placed one of his grimy appendages on the cold metal and checked for an opening mechanism. He found a button plate fixed in the wall. Garr turned and smiled over his shoulder at Enid and pushed the button. Hydraulics hissed to life, then a grinding noise took over, followed by a crackle, the smell of ozone.
What's this?
Garr said.
I ordered the door welded shut for the safety of the crew.
Chi said. So far, the truth had worked in his favor. Why break the streak now?
Or to conceal whatever loot lies in the hold.
Garr said.
I order you to have this entryway unwelded, or there shall be no end to your pain.
Garr aimed his weapon at Chi's chest. Chi stood still for a moment, looking down the barrel of the high-velocity projectile emitter.
Ye now,
Garr said, and thumbed a button on the side of the weapon. It beeped. A series of lights chased along the length of the metal and plastic device. The sound came from the weapon as it ramped up its energy. Chi drew his compod from his exoskeletal pocket.
Stig, are you calmed in?
He said.
I'm here.
Stig replied.
I need you at room C4. Our captors have requested entry into the storage chamber. Bring a weld cutter.
Chi hoped that Stig heard the play in his voice. Any word of the Vol Nest could fold his plans in a hurry. He'd been using the truth to his favor, just not too much of the truth.
Are you sure you want to allow them admittance into C4?
Stig asked. Garr wrestled the compod away from Chi and shouted into it.
get to C4 now, or I will dispatch your captain with no further argument.
The compod hissed for a moment, then Stig's voice broke through.
I'll get the tools and report to C4 immediately.
Garr handed the compod back to Chi, shaking his head.
Perhaps your little band doesn't realize the precarious nature of their position. I intend to take every item of value aboard your ship. Having your cooperation adds convenience to my task. but I can't do it with or without you.
Garr aimed his weapon at Chi again, but Gar's threats had lost their sting. Chi had become comfortable, standing on the business end of the pirate's gun. The three of them waited for Stig. Other than a few awkward glances, they didn't make eye contact. Not a word broke the silence. Stig came trundling along, pushing a cart of tools, a weld cutter, a pry bar, a few other odds and ends.
So what are you, the guitar player?
Garr asked with a smirk as Stig rolled to the metal door.
I play something much more complicated than guitar,
Stig said as he picked up a welding torch.
Sounds exotic,
Garr said.
Now start cutting.
Stig dialed in the mixed gases on the torch and used a striker to start up the cutting element. He trimmed the gases until he had a hot blue flame. He went to work, moving the torch over the weld beads he had created earlier around the seams of the door. Garr stepped back, allowing Stig room enough to work. He and Enid glanced lovingly at one another several times as Stig melted away the beads. She winced at the notion that the two alien creatures could be romantically involved. Finally, Stig stepped back from the door, pushed his welding glasses up on top of his head, and surveyed his cut. With a twist of a knob, he doused the welder.
Access has been granted to C4, but again, I recommend that you do not enter.
That decision,
Garr said as he pushed past Stig to the door,
is to be made by your conquerors.
Stig shrugged, set the welding torch down on the tool cart, and backed away from the door.
Be ready to move.
She whispered to Stig. Garr looked up at his girlfriend's face and said something about Earth relics going for fortunes on the black market. She smiled down at him and even tousled his hair with one of her oversized hands. Garr pushed the entry button. This time, the two metal slabs slid apart. Vols poured out of the storage chamber in scores. Garr and Enid raised their weapons and fired. Rodent bodies exploded like mud bubbles in the hot bogs back on Hull, but the pirates' weapons couldn't discharge enough energy to match the numbers coming at them. Vols overran Garr and Enid in seconds. The space pirates became a pair of pillars writhing with fur. Bite by bite, the Vols nipped away at the pirate couple with their needle teeth. Garr and Enid screamed in tandem, racked in agony under the micro claws and fangs of 100 rodents.
Run!
She said. He and Stig turned from the awful scene and sprinted up the long hallway. As they ran, Chi raised the rest of the crew on his compod.
We have a breach in C4. The ship will be overrun by Vols inside the hour. We'll try to seal them off in Deck C, but that will only buy us a few minutes. Gorn, start packing the instruments. We need to leave immediately.
We have no idea how many enemy are on the blood drive.
Nasher's voice came through the compod.
We have no choice but to debark.
Chi shouted.
I'm working on the entry code,
Winkle said.
but it will take time.
Get us into that atmosphere tube. Our lives depend on it.
She said and slammed his compod back into his exoskeletal pocket. With the Vols preoccupied with Garr and Enid, the first food sources they had found since exhausting the reserves in the storage facility, Chi and Stig gained enough time to exit Deck C and shut the door behind them. Stig aimed an earth weapon he had hidden under his inner shell at the door's keypad and fired. The earth weapon banged so loudly that both his and Chi's ears rang. Stig missed on his first shot. He aimed more carefully and fired 2 more times. The last shot shattered the keypad. The 2 Ice Beetles ran away from C4 towards Stiggs' lab, where Gorn had already begun packing the musical instruments. The 3 Ice Beetles worked furiously, throwing the instruments onto a cart. Once loaded, they headed into the corridor and sprinted toward the umbilical cord, which attached the 2 ships together. The Vols wouldn't stay contained for long. They would get through, and when they did, it would come in a flood. Winkle hesitated, one of his rakes floating just over the keypad. Once he began punching in 7-digit codes, there would be no stopping. The system, Winkle was sure, would be set to either a time lock or an option lock, giving him only a few attempts to guess the right code. 1 out of 5,040. Winkle wasn't used to working with odds any less than 100% in his favor. As a scientist, he prided himself in creating situations where he didn't have to take chances, and yet here he sat, about to roll the dice with the lives of his friends in the balance.
They're on their way. He'd better start punching,
Nasher said from his post up the hall. Winkle took in a deep breath and punched in the first 10 codes using a separate spicule for each key to maximize his speed. A voice came over a small speaker situated beneath the keypad, repeating a message in a foreign tongue. It took a moment for Winkle's translation protocol to work out the language and repeat it in Ice Beetle.
Emergency lockdown protocol engaged. Lockdown will commence in 5 minutes,
the voice said. That was it, a time lock. Winkle had 5 minutes before the system shut down or self-destructed. He worked the calculation in his head as he continued to punch numbers. At 275 codes per minute, that gave Winkle a 27.28% chance of guessing the correct combination. 1 in 4 was better than he expected, but not good enough. He still had a 72.72% chance of failure. He continued working the keypad. Each time he punched in a code, the little speaker issued a discouraging buzz, indicating that he had keyed in the wrong number. Cart wheels trundled down the hall behind Winkle. The others had brought the poison nickels as musical instruments. Winkle heard them talking. He caught a few snatches of words from his comrades, something about breaching the Vol's nest, about Inead and Garr no longer being a threat. He heard clanking as they distributed earth weapons. He heard Nasher order everyone to fighting posts. One by one, Gorn pushed 3 carts of instruments up close to the door behind Winkle as he continued punching in codes and getting the same repeating buzz, indicating wrong code after wrong code. Moments later, the unmistakable squeaking of approaching voles filled the corridor. The sounds of hundreds of micro-clawed feet skittering on metal increased the pressure on Winkle. They'd be on the poison nickels in seconds.
Hold your ground,
Nasher said. Everyone engaged their weapons, aiming up the hallway. Winkle continued pumping permutations into the keypad. Buzz, 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 buzz. Failure after failure. He kept his eyes on the keypad and ignored everything else. If the voles got to him, if they tore him apart, so be it. He would die punching in codes.
Engage,
Nasher shouted. Stig, Nasher, and Chi opened fire with the Earth high-velocity particle projector weapons. Each time they fired, the weapons' deafening blasts pounded their ears. Such an inefficient way to fight. Nasher hated using the Earth weapons, especially against voles. Combat should be an intimate experience shared with the enemy, face to face. Using ranged weapons disrupted the sanctity of clean killing, but she had ordered use of them in an attempt to stave off the voles' approach at longer range. Although firing at the voles from partial cover went against Nasher's philosophy of combat, he had to admit the Earth weapons were making a difference. As he fired into the endless canvas of furry rodents, he watched them fall in 2s and 3s. Not having experienced the effects of high-velocity weapons, the voles hesitated for a moment to regroup and reorganize their approach. In the end, they just leaned into their usual rush, clogging the hallway with their disgusting, smelling bodies, crawling over one another like mindless creatures driven only by a taste for blood.
How's it counting?
Chi shouted over his shoulder at Winkle.
I've exhausted 14% of 27.28% of permutations. 2 minutes and 32 seconds until lockout,
Winkle said, continuing his pace of 275 codes entered every 60 seconds. Chi fired again into the mass of voles. He expected more from Winkle, probably because Winkle never left anything to chance. All Chi could do was drop voles one after the other. Although they died in droves, they kept coming. They multiplied exponentially in C4 and reached a critical mass.
Prepare for rake-to-rake combat,
Nasher said.
Gorn, can you buy us some time?
Gorn had been standing near Winkle away from combat, watching her friends fight. The order of chanters didn't allow her to kill, but at a moment so desperate, she'd nearly broken the chanter code. She'd moved to pick up one of the Earth weapons, but a stark glare from Chi stopped her from joining the fight. If she killed, she might lose the spiritual abilities granted to her from Tyche, the god of ice. Rather than fight, she spread her wings, closed her eyes, and put her top 4 rakes together as she had been taught as a child. She She concentrated on her abdomen. She visualized her glands emitting their hormones. She imagined the elements mixing inside her body. She felt heat within. Her abdomen began to glow, pale blue at first, but increasing in intensity. She pursed her mouth, craned her throat, and issued her tocsin. A loud cry, both shrill and beautiful at the same time. Nasher, Stig, and she felt the spiritual influence of both Gorn's illumination and her tocsin wash over them. A quickening sensation rose within them. The Vols slowed their advance, threatened by Gorn's spiritual gifts. They curled back on themselves and withdrew a few paces. She knew this would only be a temporary effect. It was best to go after them hard while they were stunned. Now was the time. He opened his throat and issued the war cry of the Shrievers, a series of clicks and screams, all composed into one rhythmic thrumming. He ran at the Vols, raising 4 pairs of rakes. Stig and Nasher followed suit, Nasher issuing his own Shriever war cry. Stig, not yet a Shriever, tailed the other 2 warriors, silent but ready to dig into rodent flesh. They hit the Vols hard, driving their spicules into fur, tearing the creatures apart in 4s and 5s. The Earth high-velocity projectile emitters had worked at long range, but they didn't kill with the same efficiency as rake-to-rake combat. Where the Earth weapons killed in 1s and 2s, the Ice Beetles killed in scores with rakes. Fur and flesh flew. Gorn continued her tocsin and illumination. She couldn't hold it up for very long, but she would give her comrades everything in her power. She'd give them a fighting chance.
1 minute until lockout.
The voice, coming from the little speaker below the keypad, said. Winkle ignored the bedlam and continued punching in codes. Buzz, 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 buzz. With only 273 more attempts before lockout, he was down to a mere 5.45% chance of hitting the right permutation. For a brief, terrible moment, he imagined the ramifications if there was even one repeated register in the 7-digit code. Such criteria would throw his calculations way off skew. He reminded himself that there were 7 registers and 7 keys spoiled by the filthy alien appendages. He had to stay the course. He continued entering permutations.
Hold the line, Nasher.
She shouted out. Nasher, overcome with a visceral anger toward the Vols, launched forward into the swarm, rakes pinwheel, tearing the creatures apart, a trail of gored corpses behind him. Nasher was an excellent combatant. She knew that even Nasher would fall against such numbers. Gorn continued her tocsin, but she felt her energy begin to deplete. The biological chemical mix that kept her abdomen alight ebbed. It wouldn't be long before she would be forced to stop, perhaps by falling unconscious. But she kept the tocsin going. She would continue on to the last. Chi tore the Vols from Nasher's back. He tore them apart with his first set of rakes. With his other rakes, he attacked them on his flanks, destroying them like a machine, empowered by Gorn's tocsin. Stig fell in behind Chi, fighting, tearing, grunting, tossing Vol corpses against the walls. They kept coming, in 10s, in 100s.
The emergency lockout will commence in 10, 9...
Winkle's eye bones glowered in concentration. He continued typing on the keypad. He couldn't concern himself with the fast-approaching lockout or with combat behind him. He would either get the right code by sheer chance, or they would die right here by millions of Vol claws.
8, 7, 6.
Winkle thought about his life back on Hull. He'd never taken a mate. He'd never had offspring. Should this be the penultimate moment of death, there would be no trace of his line. All of his accomplishments in science, in biology, in the study of alien language and astronomy would be lost in a few moments of violence.
5, 4, 3, 2...
The little speaker beneath the keypad beeped. Not the discouraging buzz Winkle had heard every time he had entered an erroneous permutation. This time, the beep sounded more like a chime.
The emergency lockout suspended,
the voice said. The airlock clicked as the locking mechanism snapped open. Winkle smiled and pumped 2 of his rakes in a silent celebration. He glanced over his shoulder as he turned the catch on the airlock and pushed the door inward on its mighty hinges.
We are in,
he shouted.
Withdraw now,
she ordered, thumping Nasher's exoshell a couple of times to make sure he heard the order. In single fighting file, the 3 Ice Beetles retreated, working their rakes as they moved back toward the airlock. Gorn kept her Tocsin up, although in a weakened state. She gave them just enough strength to fend off the Vols during retreat. Winkle busied himself loading the poison nickels' instruments into the atmospheric docking port. One by one, the poison nickels moved through the airlock. A handful of Vols squeaked through around Nasher as he followed up the fighting retreat. Nasher ignored the Vols, allowing them to bite into him as he concentrated on pushing the airlock closed. Sticking Chi cleared the pests away, peeling them from Nasher's shell and tearing them to pieces. Vols threw themselves at the other side of the closed airlock. They climbed over each other, clawing at the little port window, glaring through the glass their enemies, so close and yet inaccessible. Vol micro-claws scraped against the keypad, causing the little speaker to buzz. Chi glanced at Winkle, worry on his face. The Vols were attempting to crack the entry code.
I doubt very much if their penile minds can work out the permutations,
Winkle said.
They can punch away for eternity. They'll never gain access.
Let's get to the blood drive now.
Chi said.
And do what?
Nasher said.
We're not out of the jungle yet.
We'll work it out as we go. For now, retreat.
Chi said. The poison nickels grabbed their musical instruments and sprinted through the truncating atmospheric tube, leaving the Vols and the USS Arlington behind. As they moved through the retractable hallway, a mechanical sound came from behind them. Winkle risked a glance over his shoulder, only to discover that the crew of the blood drive had detached the atmospheric docking port from the Earth vessel. The tube was folding in on itself, gathering toward the docking bay in the belly of the blood drive. There would be no going back. Thank you so much for listening. I consider you all my friends. Please don't forget to get behind the show by leaving a positive review, spreading the word, and backing the Patreon at patreon.com/terrifyinglies. Until next time, I bid you sweet dreams, or should I say, sweet nightmares. This has been the Terrifying Lies podcast. Please come again. You're welcome here.